Paddy the Baddy has begun negotiating publicly. Look, this will never go away. Anytime there's a new guy or there's a new wave, it's as though they're the first one within the sport, and they'll start to make all the arguments that we've already seen 100 of times. But every now and then it will work. And if I was to predict for you for Paddy, it's probably going to work out. Now, why do I bring that up? If you are a young and aspiring fighter, and you finally work your way into the major organization, which has been your lifelong dream, and you quickly become ungrateful to said organization, right? The night before you had the contract, you were willing to do anything to get in, but the night after you get in, you now want to turn the gun back on them. It's a very common piece of psychology. And if you watch what Paddy's doing, and I will predict for you it's going to work out, but if it works out for Paddy and you then think that you can go get the same deal, you're going down the wrong road, you're studying the wrong guy. In all fairness, I view Paddy the Baddy as a little bit of a one-off. I think he's got star potential. I think there's something very unique about him. I think that his fighting skills and styles is good, but I think that his personality and his ability to draw interest is better. That's rare. Simon Cowell is the one who introduced the term to the world, it factor. That was not a term. That was not something that had ever been spoken. That wasn't even a vernacular unique to Simon Cowell. Simon Cowell, who became the judge of a show that caught on called American Idol, was asked what it is he's looking for. He did not have the intellect to verbalize it well, so he called it the it factor. He didn't know what in the hell he was saying. But we've seen different levels of this. The Supreme Court one time made a ruling that they couldn't tell you what offensive is, but they will know it when they see it. And you know what? Us as the people, we got it. We all accepted that answer. We accept it from the Supreme Court. We accept it when Simon Cowell gave a version of it himself with the it factor. We know what that means, right? Even if it has never been said to us that way, and even if those words aren't perfectly clear, we do understand what he means. And Paddy the Baddy has something interesting about him. How far can you go with that? Well, we're all going to have to stick around and see. We're all going to have to hang back and see. It is always cart and horse. You go before the promoter, and the promoter's going to go, look, I'm going to give you one thing in this sport, which is an opportunity. I already did that in the form of a contract. You go out and do what you can with it. You hope as the promoter, without ever having to educate your team, that what I'm giving you aside from an opponent and a weigh-in and a date is I'm giving you something even bigger known as a platform. What you do with that platform is where everything great comes in. If you hear fighters ever complaining about sponsors, and I'm with the fighters, I'm on the fighter's side. I stand with the locker room for sure. But sometimes you got to buck up to the locker room and be a leader in those walls and say, guys, quit talking about sponsors. If you're a big deal with an interest, go and fill that gap yourself. Quit thinking that somebody should hand you a check to put a logo on your t-shirt, which may or may not be seen on TV. And then have you fat bastards walk out there in the same t-shirt that you warmed up in, so now you look like crap when you're on TV and you can't figure out why nobody wants to come back and hand you something for doing nothing. You don't wear the same t-shirt when the cameras go on that your tag partner in the back locker room was stretching on, you idiots. But I digress. It's a platform, and what you do with it is where you now get to come in. That's where you get to become a business with inside the business. And if you ever have the mentality of pay me more, there's a piece to that, right? There's a piece to that. You want to know the quickest way to get rich? Have a skill that people want and then don't give it to them unless they pay a bunch of money. That's the easiest way to get rich. But the reason that lesson isn't taught in any college in the world is there's more to it. There's more to those steps. You can't really get a degree in that, and it's a little bit of a one-off. What am I saying? It's chicken and egg. It really is. Paddy the Baddy did a very good job in his debut. It was not the most impressive. Now, the single most impressive debut I would put as Justin Gaethje the night he came in against Michael Johnson. Justin Gaethje did so incredibly much with that in every possible way, not just with the punches, not just with the contest or getting the hand raised. He did everything right, and it propelled him to the Ultimate Fighter, which is currently and always has been the single greatest marketing vehicle in our sport. Now, we could have a real friendly discussion on what the second best debut was. I think Michael Chandler falls into that category somewhere. I think Conor McGregor falls into that category, but you're going to only have about a top 10 list. And I do think that we would all agree Paddy is somewhere on that list. Even if he's closer to 10 than 1, he did great. Paddy did a great job. He was on the undercard. Okay, no problem, Chael. He hadn't been in the UFC, and most guys start on the undercard. Fine, I agree with you, but how in the hell do we get him off it? How do we get him off the undercard? Well, it doesn't hurt to have a good relationship with the people who decide the placement of the card, right? Does that make sense? It's the one thing in business they'll never tell you. There's no book, there's no professor at any university anywhere, including the Ivy Leagues. There's no library anywhere you can check out a book that will tell you in business it doesn't hurt to be liked. It doesn't hurt when people enjoy you. It doesn't hurt when your name pops up on a decision maker's phone that their stomach doesn't sink and say, oh, God, I don't want to talk to that guy. It doesn't hurt when you're in town to be able to go into the office and say, can I get 10 minutes? It doesn't hurt to get along and build relationships. Paddy is going about it wrong. Paddy is an undercard guy who I care about. I have the biggest audience, right? I'm audited publicly. This isn't go look at my numbers. I have the single biggest audience, and I talk about Paddy as a way of serving him, as a way of me tipping the hat at a fellow athlete who's hungry and sacrificed and has the skills to make it, but he needs to be given his opportunity. I want to pay back, and that's why I'm talking about Paddy. If Paddy shows his cards early, if Paddy shows I'm going to be difficult at the wrong time, which is when you're an undercard fighter, I don't care if you've been here 5 years. I don't care if you're 10-0, let alone been here 1 month and you're 1-0. If you're on the undercard, you've got your marching orders. They're pretty damn clear. I got to get out of it. Step one, not I got to get to the world title, right? How's a goldfish eat a shark, guys? A lot of little bites. So if you're on the undercard, you have very clear marching orders. I got to get to the main card. Once you get there, you get very clear marching orders. I got to get to a co-main event. Right? I mean, your orders are there. It's just like the military. You're going to start here, but you know exactly what rank is next. And I only bring it to you because I think this will work out for Paddy. I think Paddy's going to be the exception. I'm not positive Paddy needs to do anything different and then send a thank you to Uncle Chael. I don't want the rest of you to copy Paddy if it does work out and think that this is the way to do it. Paddy's different. I don't know how different at this point. I do not know how special he's going to be, but I do see something there. It would be very wise for Paddy, but particularly anybody who's admiring Paddy and tries to copy him. You got your marching orders if you're on the undercard. Get the hell off it. How are you going to get off it? You could go be such a big deal that then you're the one dropping the ladder down from the loft and letting your partner climb up, right? The Sean O'Malley. It's exactly what Sean O'Malley did. Anybody that wants to do business with Sean O'Malley, which is a lot of people, know what Sean has to offer, which is a beautiful placement on the card. Paddy doesn't have that yet. So how does Paddy get it? He could use platforms to become so big he's handing it out, or he could attach himself to someone who's already there. Either way, those are your two options. You make your move strategically, but he's not there yet. So who is he flexing on? And Paddy's words, in case I got ahead of myself, Paddy's words were, I'm not going to fight anybody ranked for the money I'm on now. There's a lot of problems with that statement. A lot of problems. If this was a hustler that's making counterculture statements as a way of getting headlines, we're not having this talk. We're saying, well done, Paddy. But I take him at his word, and I don't think he was doing that. If you want to fight a top guy, that's how you're guaranteed that you're on the main card. Once you get to the main card and you succeed, you stay on the main card. And even if that's not written in stone, that is the policy and the history of this business. It's just like a main event fighter. You get to the main event, there's nowhere else to go, right? Well, not necessarily. You could go to a title fight. But if you fight in a main event and you win, you're not going to go backwards. You're not all of a sudden your next card, you wake up and you're opening the show or you're on the undercard. It just doesn't work that way. Once you get your spot, you can dig in and you can cling to that spot. Broad stroke by me. But when you're making your moves strategically, you have to study history. History being the greatest trajectory to the future. Paddy's saying he doesn't want to fight top guys. I like Paddy. Me. That's not enough. Even the collected me of you, it's not enough. If we like Paddy, we can find Paddy. We just can't do it on the main card. We just can't do it on a pay-per-view. We just can't wait till the co-main event of the evening opens up, right? Because he's not there. We can still find him so everybody can get what they want. But if Paddy wants what he wants, which is more money, he's got to make his way up the card. So which comes first? It's just a cart and horse, right? It's one of those things that you got to strategically figure out. And as Paddy makes his way through it, something tells me it's all going to work out for Paddy. It does tell me there's going to be something here, but it is one of these really interesting spots where, as a guy that went through this sport and was able to do it for a very long time, very, very long time. One thing that I did find is the highest ranked guy and the toughest guy wasn't always the same guy. Look, if you get a group of athletes together and you ask them, who was the toughest guy in your gym? And I came from a who's gym, right? I could name drop for you guys till I was blue in the face. World champions, multiple UFC champions, the Pride champion, the #1 ranked guy in the fight, the Gladiator Challenge, the King of the Cage. We had IFL belts. If you could do it, Team Quest had it. I get asked, who was the toughest guy in the gym? The answer is a guy named Tyson Jeffries. Tyson Jeffries was never the champion. He never fought in the UFC and Pride in the IFL and King of the Cage. It was one of these things where he was one of these guys. But Rampage Jackson used to pay him to work out with him because he was so goddamn tough. Michael Bisping used to have this kid on the payroll because he was so damn tough. And I could play this game on and on. That's how good this guy was, but he didn't have a ranking. What's my point for bringing Tyson into this? Look, a lot of times, the highest ranked guy is not the hardest fight. I feel as though Sugar Sean was just in a real dust-up. And even if Sugar won all 14 minutes of a 14-minute fight, even if he never lost a round, Sugar would come on and tell you, man, that was a hard fight that I had. And a lot of guys are going to work that way. As a fighter, you want the most bang for the least effort. Hard to do. It's all very difficult. But you want the biggest paycheck for the easiest fight. Make no mistake, that needs to be your strategy. And a lot of times, those ranked guys are not as good without the same kind of pressure and the surprise factor of an unranked guy. You get a guy that's got a ranking, any one of them at any weight class, they're going to have some commonalities. #1 being there's footage on them. I can remember when Machida, just by example, was making his run. And I remember there was t-shirts and they were selling in droves and it said karate's back. It was a big deal that this karate guy was kicking everybody's ass and he did it all the way to a championship. And when things slowed for Machida, I only use Machida as an example, never to insult him. But I dealt with Machida personally. I dealt with him in training camps with Dan Henderson. I dealt with him in training camps with Randy Couture. Lyoto Machida was a meaningful person throughout my career for various reasons. But when he started to slow down, and those knockouts quit coming in such incredible fashion, and the t-shirts of karate's back quit selling on the .coms, it wasn't because Machida had regressed. It's because footage started to get out. He had a unique style, and the more fights he had, the more times you could sit down, study him, break it down, get a little bit closer. I use him as an example. What does Paddy want? He wants a really good fighter that you've got no footage of? He wants to do it on an undercard, but he wants a few more bucks to do it? Or you want to fight somebody in a beautiful placement who's got a lot of footage, who you can sit around and study, you can come up with a game plan, you can do a blueprint. That's one thing that the elite fighters have an advantage over everybody else. There's multiple reasons that once you make it to the high levels, you stay there. A lot of people don't understand that. Once you make it, you stay there, but people don't understand the reasons. They think that guy's got a secret, or he's got a better trainer, or he's up earlier in the morning, he's putting the extra work in. A lot of those things are true, But a lot of the other parts is you know who your opponents are going to be. If you're a guy in MMA, you're going to the gym every day and you're putting your head down on a pillow every night thinking about the same thing, which is your next match. But if you're a guy in MMA, you're spreading it over the hundreds of people that do the sport. If you can get into the major organization, in this case, the UFC, you can now limit who you have to focus on. Now, there's still 50 people, but you can at least limit it. If you get into the top 5, everybody thinks there's a top 10. There's no top 10, okay? There's 10, but it's in 2 categories. If you're top 5, you're staying in the 5. If you're in the 10, you're doing the spread. If you're in the 5, you're never going outside the 10. Do you see where it's relevant that you at least understand the goddamn rankings of your own sport that none of you get? So if you make it to an elite spot of the top 5, you're never going to leave the 10, which means when you go to practice each day, it means when you put your pillow down, put your head down on your pillow at night, and you start to focus, what am I going to have to do to stay here? You've just narrowed the field. It's wildly helpful. You don't have to think about this stud that you saw in training or this guy on an undercard that you saw on TV that, wow, looks impressive. If you're a top 5 guy, you know whose skills you're going to have to deal with. You don't know who's going to when the phone rings, but you've now got it narrowed down over the other guy that's got to worry about 50 or the person not in the organization that's got to worry about all 500. There's a reason that the top guys can stay there. It's not just their skills. And right now, where Paddy the Baddy's at, he will put his head down and there is 50 guys whose names could come out of the hat, which means he has no focus. He has no clear area of training. He doesn't know what to work on. A lot of guys are in that spot. But the smart ones have a different path and a different strategy. I think it's going to work out for Paddy. My message to you is don't copy him because it might not work out for you.